With the Houston, Texas gauntlet right around the corner, the Mariners get a great test coming to Seattle this weekend. Our thoughts on the upcoming series with the Dodgers coming up here on the Locked On Mariners podcast. Colby, hit it.
You are Locked On Mariners, your daily Seattle Mariners podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Ahoy, sailors. It is Friday, September 15th, 2023. This is Ty Gonzalez and Colby Patnett for the Locked On Mariners podcast, brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 back in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn. That's LOCKDON to get started. Thank you so much for making us your first listen. Subscribe, like, and turn on alerts if you're watching on YouTube, or subscribe and leave a 5-star review on your preferred podcast platform if you like what you hear. And if you're part of the crew and rock with us every single day, let us know in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. And if you want to hear from us even more, please consider signing up for our Patreon. You can now get a free 7-day trial to check out the show. The link, as well as our social accounts, is in the description of this episode. Mariners and the Dodgers kick off a 3-game set tonight at T-Mobile Park. You can catch all the action on the Mariners' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM via the SXM app. Colby, this is the second best team in the National League, a legit World Series contender. It's a great test, like I said, for this Mariners ball club, but one that is obviously not coming at a great time for this team. What are your expectations for the series? And what is a realistic goal for Seattle in this series?
I have no expectations for this series because I have no idea what's going to happen. I think the realistic goal, like the goal should be to win the series. What I'll be happy with is if they find a way to win one of these 3 games and kind of, keep their heads above water. So, I think that's, a reasonable goal for the club should be to win the series. I think a reasonable goal for us is, don't get swept and, just kind of give back everything you gained over the last 2 days. So, this series, man, I don't know. I don't have a good feel for it whatsoever. Obviously, the Dodgers are a very good baseball team, but they're not quite as talented as they have been in the past. Mookie Betts is probably the National League MVP. Freeman's probably going to finish 3rd or 4th in that race. So they have 2 legitimate superstars at the top of their lineup, and Will Smith is a really underrated player. So, but you kind of look at around that, and you have Jason Hayward, who's having kind of a renaissance year, but he's not, a juggernaut bat. You have JD Martinez, who again's been good. You have Chris Taylor. Like, you have a lot of real high quality, like support players, like secondary players. And it's just a deep lineup. And you're going to have to make your pitches, but this isn't, the juggernaut with, prime Cody Bellinger. It doesn't have Trey Turner. Like, there are some areas in this team that are, significantly worse than they were last year. So they're not a juggernaut, but they're still a very good team. Obviously, we're 140 whatever games into this. Like, the record is what it is. It's telling you who they are. They're a good team. So I don't have a great feel for it. When you look at the pitching matchups, I think they favor Seattle in 2 of these 3 games, but it's kind of up in the air. It's not like it's not like they're throwing Tyler Anderson at you, right? They're throwing like legitimate, like Bobby Miller and Clayton Kershaw. So, guys who are having good years and are good pitchers with good stuff. So I don't have a great feel for this series. It's kind of all over the place. Like, I don't think it's just like, well, if you shut down Mookie Betts, then you're going to win this series. Or if you shut down Freddie Freeman, you're going to win this series. I don't think it feels like that, because I could foresee a scenario where those 2 guys kind of go off, but the rest of the Dodgers lineup can't really contribute much, and the Mariners find a way to win, 4-3 or something like that. So I don't have a great feel for this series at all. The Mariners, they've won 2 in a row, but they've also played really poorly for the entire month. And so I don't have a great feel, but the Dodgers themselves have not exactly been, juggernauts in the month of September either. So, these 2 teams both had amazing August, and then September rolled around and they've both been, struggling a little bit. Seattle more than the Dodgers, but these are 2 good teams. I don't think they are elite rosters. I think there's probably only one elite roster in the entire game. Both teams have good pitching. Both teams have a good bullpen, but not, invincible. And both teams' lineups are pretty good. They have underrated catchers. They have the superstar in the middle, and I guess the difference is probably Seattle doesn't really have a Freddie Freeman. I guess Teoscar's the closest thing, but don't love that. So I don't have a good feel for the series. I don't know. Like, I think these two teams stack up fairly well against each other. I think the matchups are pretty even right now. So I just don't have a great feel for the series. It's a Pandora's box. The only way we're going to know is to play the games and just open it. So, I do think tonight is the critical game. I think whoever wins tonight is going to win the series. And if you're the Mariners, you really want to win tonight so that you can kind of set up for tomorrow and Sunday and have that game in your back pocket. So we'll see what happens, but I do not have a good feel for this series.
Yeah, so beyond Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman, there's Will Smith, who is arguably the best hitting catcher in all of baseball. Max Muncy is one of the most underrated hitters in all of baseball, at least from a power standpoint. Doesn't hit for a high average, but he hits a lot of home runs. He gets on base. I'd be stunned if Max Muncy doesn't go yard at least once in this series. JD Martinez having a good year. He always gives the Mariners issues whenever he comes to Seattle. David Peralta not really having a good year, but he's a veteran who can still do some damage here and there. You mentioned it, Jason Hayward. They've, in true Dodgers fashion, have revitalized the career of Jason Hayward. He's worth like 2.2 F4 this year. He's got a 125 WRC plus. He's having a great year. James Outman got off to a really, really good start this year, then really tailed off, but now he's kind of started to have success again at the plate. And then obviously, Chris Taylor, Kike Hernandez, after they got him from the Red Sox, he was one of the worst hitters in all of baseball this year until he got to LA. And of course, he is hitting for 104 WRC plus or something like that since the deadline, because that's what the Dodgers do. And we have to mention that Colton Wong is on this Dodgers roster. Yes, that very same Colton Wong. He's been with the Dodgers since September 1st, at least on their major league roster since September 1st. He's only had 13 plate appearances, but he has 3 hits in those 13 plate appearances, 2 of them home runs. So, Colby, look, maybe he doesn't hit a home run, but I feel fairly confident that Colton Wong is going to do something in this series. Feel the same way? Like, it's just going to happen, right?
Yeah, this is Dodgers fix bad hitter magic mixed with guys always leave the Mariners and get better magic or curse, whatever, and they're all being jammed into one player for one weekend. So yeah, I mean, I'm assuming he'll get a start. I don't know for sure. Like, obviously the Dodgers are an incredibly talented team, and there may not be a start to be had for Wong, but I feel like he's probably going to get a start or two. And I don't know, maybe it's just he makes a great defensive play that he didn't make in Seattle, or maybe he hits a big double to tie the game in the 7th or something like that, or maybe it's just a home run, and the Mariners are up 4-1 in the 9th and he hits a home run and you're just like, oh, ha, 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 that's funny because we're probably going to win still. So it's funny. But yeah.
Mariners up 4-1 and just having an easy win where a Colton Wong home run is like, yeah, that's whatever. That's funny. Really?
I mean,
really? Have you watched this team?
Have you?
Have you watched this bullpen?
Yeah, I have. So, I think Wong will probably do something, but that's baseball. So not much you can do about it. Just accept the inevitability that at some point people are going to be like, just wait for the inevitability that the same people who criticize the Mariners for trading for Wong and then took credit for him being one of the worst second basemen in baseball, like they had any idea that was going to happen.
Right
now they're going to come out of the woodwork after this and be like, yeah, they gave up on him too soon. He started to hit, and all of a sudden, like, Rojas went 0 for 8 in the series, and Wong went 2 for 6 with a home run and a double. Like, see, the Mariners can't do anything right. Just wait for those same people to do a 180 after Wong does his thing. That'll be glorious.
Yeah. This series definitely feels very similarly to the Braves series last year, which was also in September against an elite National League opponent, and the Mariners were able to win 2-3 in that series. And it really, that's when I think the reality of what was going on with this team really set in for a lot of people, at least for me. Like, hey, this team is legit. They are going to go to the playoffs, and they might actually be able to do damage in the playoffs. So hopefully here, I mean, best case scenario from a Mariners perspective is that they have a very similar series here where you feel a lot better about this team than you have over the last couple weeks, heading into, what should be on paper a relatively easy Oakland series. They are obviously playing a lot better ball. It's not going to be easy. Let's be real with ourselves. But on paper, it should be, right? And then you go into that gauntlet against Texas, Houston, Texas. That's when the playoffs start for the Mariners next Friday. That's really when the playoffs truly begin for this ball club. And this is a great test for them before they go into that stretch.
I mean, you could argue they're already starting their playoffs.
There are,
yeah. Like it's not elimination baseball yet, but your margin of error is still quite slim.
Yeah. So if you're able to win one of these 3 games, great. You have a 2.5 game buffer on the Blue Jays because of the tiebreaker. So you have some room for error here in this series in particular. But if things don't go well here, you are going to have to win that series in Oakland or possibly sweep. So we'll see. This is one of those series where the Dodgers are really good. So if the Mariners lose, a couple of these games, I'm not too broken up about it. Dodgers are a really good team. I mean, we'll see how the actual games play out and what happens. But again, just win one of these games, and I'm fairly content about what happens in this series overall. So George Kirby is starting tonight. It's his first start since everything that happened in Tampa. We're going to be talking about him in just a moment. But first, a reminder, this episode of the Locked On Mariners podcast is brought to you by Jace Medical. Modern medical care and treatment are important, but our global supply chains are fragile. Things like pandemics, natural disasters, and foreign travel may cut you off from the treatment you need. Jace Medical is your solution for that. Just fill out our online form and one of our board-certified physicians will review it to determine whether medications are safe and appropriate. Then they will send your prescriptions to one of our partner pharmacies where your Jace order will be filled and mailed directly to your home. Everyone should feel empowered to care for themselves and their loved ones during the unexpected. That's why Jace Medical offers the Jace case. Save more than $360 by getting these life-saving antibiotics with Jace Medical plus an additional $20 off by using the promo code LOCKEDON at checkout on jacemedical.com. That's JASE medical.com. You're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast. Thank you again for making us your first listen. Again, you can catch the Mariners and the Dodgers tonight on the Mariners hometown broadcast with SiriusXM via the SXM app. George Kirby versus Bobby Miller. And Colby, it's been a rough go for George Kirby the last couple of starts. He obviously was sick about a week and a half ago, got his start in the last Oakland series, pushed back to the one in New York, and that didn't go well for him. Just 3 innings pitched in that one. We all know what happened in Tampa Bay and what happened after that game. What are your expectations for George Kirby, who's been frustrated lately?
He has. George really hasn't been all that good since the Baltimore outing. So it's been a few weeks, and he was okay in Tampa. He was terrible in New York. I don't really know how to. I feel like overall George is going to be fine. He's too good of a pitcher. His stuff's too good. His command's too good. His competitiveness is, all that is way too good to be bad for this long. But it has been about a month since we've seen legitimately good George Kirby. So, you hope that that's going to reverse itself today. It's probably your only shot of winning this game is if you get a semi-dominant performance from Kirby. So that's what you hope you see. But one thing I would like to see is can you put guys away 0-2? Can you get to 0-2 and put them away? Can you have some quick innings? Can you not walk guys? And, it's funny we talk about George is having trouble walking guys right now. That's not something we ever thought we'd say. And yet he walked 3, I think, in his last outing and hit a guy. It's a legitimate concern. And we've talked about Kirby's stuff being good, but not elite. It plays up because of the command. So, if he's in the middle of the plate, he's going to get hit because, again, the stuff is good, not great. So he's got to be on the corners. He's got to get the Dodgers to expand the strike zone a little bit. I imagine the Dodgers' game plan will be to be fairly aggressive on the fastball early. That would be my guess. That seems to be your best shot against Kirby. So maybe today's the day where we see him, drop a few first pitch splitters and a few, first pitch curveballs and kind of mix things up that way. So I think, for George, we're going to have a pretty good idea early on what kind of Kirby we're getting. Typically, Kirby's not a guy who needs a couple innings to find it. So if he's, working deep counts in the first, then we know that there's something still off, but you hope that he can go 6 or 7 tonight, give up 2 runs, give up 3 runs, at least give your offense a shot. He did that in his last start, but obviously, we know how that ended. And then he was just completely incapable of doing that against the Mets before that. So I hope it's vintage Kirby. It'd be nice to see 1 or fewer walks. It'd be nice to see him put guys away 0-2. It'd be nice to see him, take advantage of an aggressive team and have an 8-pitch inning in the first couple of innings, to really kind of counterpunch what has become the pretty obvious game plan whenever Kirby is on the mound, and that is to be aggressive early on the fastball. So hopefully George makes his adjustment, and he still needs the fastball. He can't just not throw it, but he's got to be a lot more selective with it. And he can't be afraid to pitch from behind either. He can't be afraid to make a 2-1 pitch. So we'll see how it goes for him. But my expectations for him are a bit like the expectations for the series. I just don't know what to expect. It's either any and all possibilities seem equally likely right now. I would hope that it would be, Kirby's not going to be bad for 5 starts in a row, or mediocre for 5 starts in a row, or however you want to, whatever adjective you want to put on Kirby right now. But, I don't know, because it feels like he is yet to really make a good counterpunch to the new game plan against him.
Yeah, how aggressive will the Dodgers be? This is a very savvy and veteran lineup. They only have 3 position players on their entire roster that are in their 20s right now, and no guy younger than 26 years old. It's a lefty-heavy lineup as well, with guys like Freeman and Muncy and Peralta and Hayward and Outman. Obviously, Colton Wong on the bench as well. So, will they still be aggressive, and how aggressive will they be? And can George, this is really the key, right? Can George take advantage of that aggressiveness and be able to put guys away early on in the count? Can he keep the ball on the ground? That's really going to be the thing here, right? It's not about striking guys out. Like, you are going to have to strike some guys out here in this lineup if you're George. And strikeouts have been kind of an inconsistent thing for George this year, but it's really about keeping the ball on the ground with this team, because this team can hit a lot of home runs. And so, not making that mistake, like you said, right? Don't be afraid to throw a pitch out of the zone on a 2-1 count instead of piping a fastball down the middle of the plate and just hoping that they whiff or they foul it off or whatever. Yeah, I'm really intrigued by this start. This is the most intriguing game to me in general in this whole series, because there's so much going on with George right now, obviously, and the Mariners need George. They need him to be in the right headspace. They need him to be that guy that he has to be in this rotation, right? He's one of the 3 best pitchers in this rotation, and he's going to be someone that they're going to have to ride a lot here, from next Friday onward and into the postseason. So hopefully, him getting back on track starts tonight, because they absolutely need it. Any other thoughts on George or tonight's game before we move on, Colby?
No, I hope he can go 6 or 7 quality innings, good innings, and kind of, quickly put the last start behind him and just, move forward. And I don't think there's any ill effects of the controversy after his last start or anything like that. I don't think that that's going to seep into this start at all. So I'm hoping that George, I would like to see him get off to a fast start. I would like to see a 1-2-3 first, or an 8-pitch second, or something like that, just to kind of get him back in his groove and see if he can finally adjust to the first pitch fastball attack plan.
All right, we're going to talk more about these other 2 pitching matchups on the weekend in just a moment. But first, a reminder, this episode of the Locked On Mariners podcast is brought to you by FanDuel. Celebrate the start of the NFL season with great offers from FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 back in bonus bets guaranteed. Plus, all customers who bet $5 will get $100 off NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Now is the best time to join FanDuel. The app is easy to use, and you can be in on everything from spreads to player props and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's LOCKDON. Kick off the NFL season with an offer you won't want to miss. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. And you're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast. Thank you again for making us your first listen. Again, you can catch the Mariners and the Dodgers tonight on the Mariners hometown broadcast with SiriusXM via the SXM app and over the course of the weekend as well. And that's what we're talking about now here on the Locked On Mariners podcast. So tomorrow's pitching matchup, Bryce Miller versus Clayton Kershaw. And then Sunday, it is Logan Gilbert versus Emmett Sheehan. It's obvious which one favors the Mariners more than the other, right? But I want to talk about tomorrow in particular here. Is there any hope for this Mariners lineup against Clayton Kershaw, who's having yet another good year?
Sure. There's always hope. I mean, the
All right.
Mariners dropped 6.
Look at Optimus Colby.
I mean, the Mariners dropped 6 on Cy Young Verlander last year. Like,
Yep.
Of course, pitchers have bad starts, and you know, you could even have a good start. You just kind of grind out a 3-2 win. Of course, there's hope. It's a baseball game. You know, there's a non-zero, like relatively high probability that the Oakland sweeps the Mariners next week. Like, it's a baseball game. At the end of the day, we can crunch the numbers all we want, but it's a 50-50 proposition. Like, you're either going to win or you're going to lose. Yep. And you know, Kershaw is obviously having a good year. He's a Hall of Famer, first ballot. Like, he's had a fantastic career. He's having another good year, but good pitchers have bad starts. They dropped 6 on Cole in New York last year. Like, you know, it's not insane to think that, oh yeah, it's possible Kershaw struggles, or it's possible that the Mariners win a Gilbert versus Senga game instead of lose it like they did a few weeks ago. Like, they could totally win 2-1. Kershaw could, you know, not have it and give up 5 runs. We see him do it all the time in the playoffs, but you know, it's one of those things where, yeah, it's a baseball game, you know, and Kershaw's really good. But you know, is it likely? No, obviously not, especially when you're counting with Bryce Miller. Although Miller's been pretty good. You know,
yeah, that's really the key, right? Is like, what kind of Bryce Miller we're going to get, especially against this Dodgers lineup.
Yeah.
And if it's not great, right? If he gives up 3, 4, 5 runs, is this offense going to be able to generate enough to keep up and overcome that?
Right. Again, probably not, but we don't know. Like, we have a good idea of what a pitcher is going to do every time he goes out there, but there's always the start where the Mariners drop 5 on Framber and he starts throwing at guys because he's a soft little coward. Like, there's always that possibility that happens with Kershaw. So
Astros catching strays no matter what.
Always. But yeah, so of course there's a shot they win. I'd say it's the game they're least likely to win.
Sure.
In the whole series, but we've also seen Miller go out there and shove against a good lineup like the Astros. So like, we don't know how this is going to play out. Of course, there's a shot. Like, again, like if I had to bet rent on it, I would pick the Dodgers to win that game on Saturday. But A, thankfully I don't, and B, that doesn't mean that they're going to win. You know, there's a lot of different ways you can win a baseball game. Again, is it likely that they're going to beat Kershaw, especially if Miller gives up, 3-4 runs? No, of course it's not. But it's honestly not all that likely that you're going to beat anybody if your starter goes out there and gives up 3-4 runs in 5 innings. So, yeah, there's definitely a possibility, but I would say that's the game that you're least likely to win.
Yeah, and then Sheehan is the guy that you really have to get to if you're this Mariners offense. It's been a struggle for him. It's a fastball slider changeup profile from him. None of those pitches have been particularly good so far. He's only thrown like 43 innings or something like that. But that's definitely the guy out of the 3 here with Miller, Kershaw, and Sheehan that you have to get to here. So yeah, if you can win tonight, I actually feel decent about the Mariners' chances to win this series. But again, it all comes down to tonight. You got to get a good start out of George Kirby, and you got to be able to score at least a couple of runs off of Bobby Miller tonight, and the Dodgers bullpen, which the pitching for the Dodgers has been an issue at times, and obviously they haven't had a clean bill of health in the pitching staff either. So yeah, you got to be able to take advantage of that in this series if you want to have any sort of success. Any final thoughts before we get on out of here, Colby?
Yeah, we don't have the lineups right now, so I don't know if this is going to actually end up being like possible.
Mhm.
But I do have a gut feel on I don't want to say hero of the game tonight, but I don't want to call it what we used to call it because it never worked
Yeah,
out.
we're not. Yeah, nope.
Yeah. But like just a gut call here.
Okay.
If he's in the lineup, I think Mike Ford is taking Miller deep. We
All right.
know that Ford loves to hit the fastball. Miller loves to throw the fastball. Ford can kind of get on top. You remember what was Jose Marmoleos against Dustin May? Where
Oh
he just
yeah,
hit that screaming liner that
Yeah,
just cleared
that
the
little wall scraper.
Yeah. I mean, it was hit like 112 miles an hour, but like,
Yeah.
it was just a line shot that just cleared the fence. I wouldn't be shocked if we saw something like that from Mike Ford tonight. Again, I don't know if he's in the lineup, but it feels like a good fastball pitcher. Ford's typically in the lineup. So I think
Mhm.
maybe that's a guy to watch, man. Just a gut call. Like, no,
Sure.
he's probably going to go 0 for 3 and pop up 3 times or strike out.
Because you
and
cursed
pop.
him, of course.
Probably. I mean,
Yep.
that's why we no longer do the thing that we
Yep.
can't even mention.
The,
but
the thing that shall not be named. Yep.
right, we don't do that anymore for obvious reasons. But yeah, it's call it a gut call. But you do want to. One other thing I will say is you do want to play from ahead, if at
Yes.
all possible, because Gratterall has filthy stuff.
Yep.
Evan Phillips is having an amazing year.
Yep.
Caleb Ferguson is having a great year. Ryan Brazier is having a good, like, dudes can pitch. Okay, out of the pen,
Mhm.
they have like 4 or 5 guys. There are probably 3 guys that are legit, high leverage guys out of that bullpen. So you do want to play from ahead. Don't get down by a couple runs early, or I guess technically don't get down by a couple runs late, because you're probably not gonna get those big hits you need. But overall, I think I think put some pressure on them early, play from ahead, and then hope that your pitching can cover some innings because it's still a little tough to trust this bullpen right now.
Yeah, I want to make it clear when I say that the Dodgers pitching has been an issue at times for them. I'm nitpicking. That's because the Dodgers
You
are
have
very
to.
good. Yeah, the Dodgers are very good, but like you got to just try and take your wins how you can here and try and acknowledge some of the weaknesses, quote unquote, of this team, which there aren't many. There really aren't many here. So yeah, it's gonna be a tough series, man. I'm really interested to see how this Mariners ball club stacks up. But like I said, just win one game. I'm good. I'm content. If you get swept, it's not necessarily the end of the world because you do have that 2.5 game buffer over Toronto, but it's
Sure about that?
not great. It's not great. It's definitely not the end of the world. It's
Think
definitely not the end of the world, but it puts more pressure on you to have a really good series in Oakland and get
Right.
back on a roll here before you go into that gauntlet.
I would say that you have to go 3-3 over this next stretch of 6 games. Doesn't necessarily matter how you do it, but I think if you go 4-2 over this stretch of 6, and I think you're really cooking with some gas heading into that Texas series. And then we'll see what Toronto does. I think they have the Yankees this weekend. The Yankees played, or maybe it's the Red Sox. Either way, they played 2 doubleheaders in 3 days. So like they're probably pretty worn down. But it'd be nice.
Red Sox.
It'd be nice if the Jays could drop a game or 2 this weekend. That would be pretty helpful. But we'll see how it goes. Might be some post game shows. We'll see. But certainly not if they lose. If they get swept, no. So
you will not see us until Monday.
Yes, win 1 or 2 of these games, and let's go to battle in the last 13 to decide the American League West, the number 2 wild card and the number 3 wild card.
Yep. And we're also going to be big Red Sox fans for the next 6 days because again they are playing the Blue Jays this weekend, and then they're going to Texas right after that to play the Rangers. So go Sox, go Sox. All right, that's going to do it for our show. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Locked On Mariners podcast. For Colby Patnode, I'm Ty Gonzalez. Be sure to give us a follow on Twitter at @LO_Mariners. You can follow me at Dan Gonzalez. It's DANEGNZLZ. and Colby at CPAT11. That's CPAT11. You can also find all that stuff in the description of this episode. Thank you again for making us your first listen. Have yourself a beautiful baseball day, and we'll see you next time. Peace.